All right, here's 6311 Betsy Ross. So here, it's very cute neighborhood here. Very cute. It's got lots of pretty trees that are in bloom right now. All right, let's go inside and take a look. All right, here we are in the entryway. Here is the front door. So you come in, and then there's a coat closet directly on your left. Oop, okay, needs a little WD-40, but no big deal. Little ledge in there, that's cute. And then here is the powder room, guest bathroom, which is nice. Pedestal sink, mirror, little light fixture. You have some space back here for like a little standing cabinet if you wanted to, because the door doesn't, well, maybe. It'd have to be skinny. I guess the door swings further than I thought, but like a small cabinet. And then here's the toilet. So this is wood. This is hardwood. It has been stained a very dark color, but it is hardwood, which is nice. This has been painted, I believe. But so yeah, the handrail and the balusters have been painted, but the floor is a hardwood, and so you could have it refinished if you wanted a different color later. Beautiful windows right here. And then, so this one's similar to one of the ones we looked at earlier. You have kind of these two, they could be two spaces or they could just be one big space. There's a beam right here, which is really cool. It's a slightly reddish brown. It's a pretty color. So then here's the chandelier, that transom window above the door. It's really nice, brings in a lot of light. So I'll walk through here. This would, probably be the living room. This would be the dining space back here. It's a pretty good space. You've got lots of room. That's a Ring doorbell chime, I believe. So that's nice. And then this big window here opens up to the backyard. So this one doesn't have an upper deck, but we'll check out the backyard from downstairs. So here is the kitchen. Let me see. There's probably lights in here. Maybe. Okay, so this light switch needs a little bit of TLC, but maybe a bit of TLC. Okay, so all right, that's how you would control the kitchen lights. I can see them flashing, but it's probably just the switch that would need to be replaced, or the switch cover. But yeah, a little TLC. This is granite. This is an overhang here. You could fit 2 stools comfortably. I think you could push to 3 if you have kids or small adults. 3 could fit here. No more, but 3 would fit. And then here is a pantry. That's also where the internet comes in, it looks like. So that's where you'd have a router. Window here. This is a very large refrigerator. So this kitchen would look better with a counter depth refrigerator. This thing is a monster, and it definitely, it limits the space here. So just kind of one thing to keep in mind is it's about 6 or 7 inches from the wall, which is standard clearance, but you can't open the fridge doors. So you'd have to push this refrigerator back. I'm not sure why it's in its current location. I wouldn't want to venture a guess. But these are cute little cabinets. These are painted cabinets. And I think I mentioned it, but if not, this is a granite countertop. Same wood floor in here. This has been refinished recently. So this, it looks nice. It might be an engineered wood. Sometimes it's hard to tell when it's dark like that. Either way, it's nice floor. It's in great condition. Sink right here, little paper towel bar. There's a light right there. Cute little cabinets. You do have some internet cables running throughout the kitchen. So again, not being critical, just want you to be able to see what it looks like. Tile backsplash. So drawers. Yeah, this is a basic kitchen. Looks like it functions pretty well. We can check under the sink for anything crazy. Nothing crazy in there. So this right here, I don't know what this was originally kind of intended for. You couldn't put a stool here or really much because of this. You could maybe do like a pull-out, seasoning cabinet, or maybe some like wall cabinets right here. I'm not sure. It's kind of a weird space right here. So you'd have to think of a cool way to use that. But that is the kitchen. And so then we will head upstairs to see the bedrooms. So this carpet has been freshly cleaned. It's in pretty good condition, I would say. I don't see any big stains. I don't smell any animals or anything gross. When you come up the hallway, well, we can see you all here, but we're going to go right first. So this is a pretty small bedroom, great for a kid's room or a guest room or a home office. You do have this nice window right here that overlooks the front. So the two guest rooms are front facing rooms. So you have some floor outlets in here where the walls are shared. So, but that's great. Sometimes they just didn't put outlets in at all. So it's nice to have floor outlets. Another big window. So some of these windows have blinds, some of them don't. There's no overhead light in this room or the one that we just looked at. So just something to keep in mind. That's standard. Again, this outlet is probably a switch controlled outlet. So you'd plug the lamp into there. And then if you wanted to, you can run power from the switch up to an overhead light if you wanted to install that or have an electrician do that for you. Here's the closet in here. So nice, you have plenty of space. All right, so the paint condition in this one is decent. Some rooms, show wear and tear because it's a used house. So you'd probably want to paint some of the rooms. It's not, it doesn't need maybe a full repaint like one of the ones we looked at. But you might want to paint as you lived here for a little while and figured out what you wanted. So here's the hallway bath, really nice. This is a nice ceramic tile, linen closet in the bathroom. This is granite. I believe it's the same granite's in the kitchen. It's not, if not, it's very similar. Cabinets. That's a medicine cabinet here. Yeah, so you have some extra storage there. This actually looks like it might be too. Oh, yeah. So you have to be careful of that. And then this track light in here has a lot of rust on it. Could be from water. The fixture is a little bit loose. You'd probably want to replace that sooner than later. So these light fixtures being rusty can sometimes mean that the exhaust fan is not adequate for removing the moisture from the room. So, something to talk to the inspector about. This one has an insert, but it's clean. It's in decent shape. It looks fine. This is it's a basic, modest bathroom, but it's not dirty. So, for what that's worth. Then we'll come through here into what is the primary bedroom, which is much larger than the two smaller bedrooms. Here you have plenty of space for a dresser. This would support a king-size bed. Probably a queen size, a little bit better, but it would support a king size bed. So in most of a furniture suite, if you had it, although you might not need it because this one has a ton of closet space back here, which is really nice. So you have this kind of built-in unit here, and then it walks back and there's a light. It walks back through here. And then, some of these things are would need to be repaired or maybe leveled a little bit. And there's some extra shelves. So you would need to do a little bit of repair in here, but it's in pretty good shape, I would say. And you could definitely use it when you moved in. Here is the sink area. Same granite, medicine cabinet thing here. Same large sconces. And then here, so this has a combo fan and light. They're on one switch. But a slightly older toilet, but I'm sure it works fine. This has obviously come out of the wall. That was put in with drywall anchors. If you can find a stud, that's a better way to anchor those, or a standing one. So a little bit of repair required there. This is kind of this is I would say a dorm room size shower. So, but it's in good shape and it's not gross. I don't see mildew or anything nasty in here. Basic shower, but it's not gross. And the caulk, the caulk probably could have been done a little bit better. You could fix that if you wanted to, but it's not, there is some damage to the ceiling there. I'm not sure what that's from. Actually, there's a fair amount of cracking on this ceiling. Something to talk to the inspector about maybe. I'm not sure what causes that. I believe that's paint and moisture. I believe that's a moisture problem. Sometimes it's as simple as dusting that fan, which has probably never been cleaned, or replacing the fan with a better one. But again, something to talk to the inspector about. You do have a GFCI in there, so that's good. Okay, so now we're going to head downstairs. You may have some attic access in here if you wanted to add those overhead lights. That makes it a lot easier. The paint in here in this area is pretty good. There's a few scuffs, but definitely better than the last one. So we'll walk down here and then we'll head down to the basement. So you have a light here, and then this is nice carpet. This is the same carpet that's upstairs. We'll come down here to this lower rec room area, which is very nice. So you have a fireplace here. Looks like it's a wood burning fireplace. So that outlet is probably high for a TV. That's typically why those are there. You could always take it out if you didn't want it, but this would be a good spot for a TV. Probably, yeah, depending on how big your TV was. You have some shelf, like a shelf kind of here, and then these windows bring in a lot of light down here. Up outside, you have, so you have to walk up a little bit, but there's a little bit of turf over there if you have a little pet, and then a little shed. And this is a very cute little area. So it's not as big as the other ones we looked at today, but you definitely have room for, I would say, a table for 4, maybe 6 out here, and a grill. It would be tight if you had a table and 6 chairs and a grill. It would be tight. So depending on how many chairs you need at your table, but it's a cute area. A table with 4 chairs would be great. So we will go, so I'll pan around a little bit here. Okay. And then, so here's some more of that cabling. So I think it's coax. They used to use coax for internet everywhere, apparently. So my house came with 9 miles of coax cable in it too. Here's the electrical panel, and that's some sort of motion sensor, probably for an alarm. Let's see here. And there are some lights in here. I couldn't figure out how to turn them on. So I'm not sure what switch they're on. It's not that one. It's not either of those. I'm not sure, but somewhere you can probably turn those lights on. Over here is this cute little alcove if you wanted to build in some shelving or something like that. Through here, we have the utility room. So this is a great space here. This is a ceramic tile. Here we have the water heater, which is clean and looks well kept. The furnace, which was a heat pump installed June of 2006. And then it was repaired and replaced blower motor in 2022. So it's an older unit, but if it's been, serviced, could be totally fine. There's a box for a new exhaust fan. So maybe you could replace one of the ones in the bathroom. Excuse me, it's a little dusty in there. You have this little setup right here. So it's not exactly a utility sink, but you do have a sink down here in the utility space, which is awesome. This is one of those cool kind of like ceramic composite sinks, and some cabinets, and then you have some track lighting up here, and there's lots of lighting going on in here. You have another cabinet over here, and then, washer and dryer. So you have these 2 windows here that look out to the front. So this is a very nice laundry room. And here you have like this little Harry Potter closet situation, where there's some storage in here. So that's paint and like household things. And then some shelves, drainage, and then I think, let's see, we can wander through here. It's nice that there's a light. So there's no light back here, but they have some paint and stuff back there. And depending on how large you are physically, you could put more things way back there. It doesn't show up on the video, but you have a few more feet of storage back there. So this is clean out trapdoor. Not sure. I'm not going to open it to find out, but who knows, right? So here we go. It's nice there's a light in here. And you get a free tiki torch with purchase. So we will come out here, and then we will look at the last little room. So this door doesn't really stay closed. Not a huge deal. These can be adjusted relatively easily, but it doesn't, just so you know, right now it doesn't stay closed. So I'm going to close this one. These doors are hard. You can't really have them both open at the same time because they open into each other. But here we have powder room downstairs. This is the same tile. It's in the utility room. Basic, they used to have a picture hanging up there. Let's see if the fan works. Yes, sort of. Not super well. That's probably what that new fan was for. It's probably this one right here. So, you have a vent up there. Small bathroom, but, it has everything you need. Toilet and outlets. And so, or toilet and sink, excuse me. Yeah. So some of these, it's like this was changed and like this wasn't. And so some of those things are just, what homeowners do when they don't want to change the whole outlet. So you'll see a little bit of that in here. This looks like those were painted maybe. I'm not really sure, but there we go. So this is that space downstairs again. And then, you have that soffit there for HVAC, but otherwise it has full height ceilings and it's very lovely.